Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining Tuesday's Lunch and Learn. Let me get my local up here. Sabs, do we have any pre-submitted questions today?
We do not.
Okay. All right. And Jeremy, go ahead, sir. What you got?
Yeah, I'm looking at assigned forms, and if you're just assigning it as just a regular assigned form, you can set the expiration date, warn date, etc. But when you change that to assigned to named session, those options go away. So I can't like assign a form to a named session and still have it expire. At least from what I'm seeing.
I think that is a bug. There should be no difference. You should be able to assign it to. As a quick test, if you try doing it assigned to guests, does it still restrict you in the same way?
Correct. Yeah, it's like when it's just set to assigned, I have the assignment setup option. But if I change that to guest or named session, that option goes away and I can't click edit to set those options.
Is it specifically like how needed is a workaround for this? Is it like you need all the escalate behaviors or you specifically need to expire?
The one I'm looking at right now is just to expire.
Because we could, well, I could talk through how to use like report action outcomes to give you an expiration path. I mean, it's a little bit of extra work, but it could give you what you need with a name session. I mean, you should be able to still use expiration dates on name session based assignments as far as I'm concerned. But I could show you how to do it now, considering the constraint that you have.
Okay.
And I'll walk you. And plus, this is also just good general information to know about how to like process assignments using API calls. So let me just get myself my normal place to work here. And let's create a folder here. Process form response. All right, so let me just create a flow to mirror your flow. So here's a form. Here's a form, create a form. Right, and then we'll turn it to assigned. Oops, sorry, we'll turn it to assigned to name session. Yeah, this is just some dumb bug. Let me do test. All right, so this is where we're at. I don't have the assignment setup screen at all. Now what I can do though is come to, where are we at? Oh, hold on. You know, honestly, maybe there's a better, what if, let's just check something. Assignment setup. Specify expiration date. Compute date, start, constant. Say 30 seconds. There's assignment timeout. Then assign a name session. It's just a property grid issue, I bet. Don't have permissions to run. What's wrong with you? Did I not specify? Doesn't like my name session. Okay, it doesn't like my name session. Maybe my name session has restrictive permissions. security name sessions test is assigned is related to the admin account. Missing here, edit form. I've got a form with nothing on it. Selected a name session. Let me look at that error message a little closer. Create assignment, set up assignment. I think better in the logs. That's a let's just do this. Let's grab a completely distinct. We'll pick this one we just created. And set it to sign in name session. We'll pick test. And that works. So it's the existence of the expiration date breaks that. So, okay, there goes that attempted an easy change. So let me change assigned, assignment setup. That's a false. But what I'm going to try is adding an action definition here.
And I just tried doing what you're doing by setting that up and then change it to name session, and my path for that goes away.
Okay, so yours is handling it better than mine is right now.
Yeah, I'm in version 7.11.
Yeah, this is 8.3. Okay, so I can get test API. All right, so let me come back to my folder here. And create a flow. So what I'm going to do here is I've added this extra outcome path, but I had to do a similar kind of trick. I did is I set this to assigned, and then I get assignment set up. And if I scroll to the very bottom, you'll see these action definitions. Test, and I created one called test API, which you can see here. And that seems to allow me to use this. So if I leave this set as name session, it works. So I have this special outcome path now. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run this flow in the debugger. Sorry. Let me run this flow. So boom, that flow is hit, and now it's assigned. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find its assignment ID. This should be the most current one here because of the way this query is working. We'll talk about how you can get the assignment ID in an actual programmatic fashion here in a minute. But I'm going to create another flow called scheduled job. And then here, what I'm going to do is search for, see if this comes up, process. Sorry, my search is, I got to get off this database. My search is screwed. So I'm going to come to the assignment service. So integration, internal services, assignment service, or assignment. And then here, there's a step terribly named process form assignment response. Process form assignment response. Now this step can take an assignment ID and a response and a response, which is the outcome path name, and it can push an assigned form down that action definition. I'm just going to set it to constant for now. These fields need to be set to constant, I believe, if I recall correctly. I can't remember exactly. There's one of these fields doesn't handle null that well currently. And then my response, I think, is going to be my outcome path name, which is test API. Looks like that. So I might, if I run this, it's going to fail because my outcome path is wrong. No, there we go. Okay. Let's walk back through what I have here. So I have this thing called a report action definition. And the main way these things are used is kind of shortcuts. Actually, someone is asking a question, Jeremy, for you. Let me put this in the chat, which is what's the need? What's making you assign this to the named session? What's the use case you're working underneath here?
I'm having an anonymous person that's going to begin a purchase of an award that has to be approved. And once it's approved, then we send out another assignment for that person to submit payment. And then after that, once they've paid, where this comes into effect is we have a database of these awards on our website, but we don't want that award to appear on the website until after the presentation date has happened. So I'll have a scheduled job that then sees that this award's presentation date was yesterday, and we send out another assignment back to the person who ordered the award to verify that yes, this was presented yesterday. And we want to have that assignment expire after a week if they don't respond to it, and we'll go ahead and push stuff to the website. So that's where it would be assigned to a named session, because the person that's getting assigned to is an anonymous person somewhere in the world.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense. That's a good use case for a named session based assignment. Okay, so here I have a flow that has this outcome path and a separate flow that can push a flow down that particular outcome path. So if I just name this thing expiration, expiration outcome, I can, it's more meaningful for my example. But imagine you build a flow, right? And this flow is going to do something like this: fetch entities. Now, what you could do is probably set the type here to make it easy to find these things. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to have to flip this back again. This is dumb. Assignment setup, and I'm going to give it a type. I could use other ways to sort of give it identifying information, but I'm just going to create a type here called award, whatever you said, like award holder or something. That's my assignment type. And let me flip it back to named session here. Let me just save this and debug, make sure that still runs, considering the escalation, the assignment was a problem. Okay, so I've got one of those now. So if I could build a flow, and here I could find assignment, and then I could come here to fetch criteria, and I could search by state, and I could add another one here by type, assignment type. So assignment type, so state would be current. An assignment type would be award holder. Now, if I run this, I should get a single result. Oh, didn't like that, did it? Which assignment type? Let me just.
Did you rerun your flow to create an assignment?
Yeah, it's still there. Let me get rid of my fetch criteria. The results. Okay. I'm searching assignment. Let me get rid of my assignment type. Maybe it's not taking my assignment type. I need to order this by sort field, created on date. What can I use to identify this thing? A good way to identify this. Assignment type. It's overriding my assignment type for some reason. Not letting me specify. Oh Lord, this should not be so freaking hard. Assignment type description. Maybe it's wiping this away. Change back to name session. Let me save it. Up here. assigned, edit. Oh, or maybe I just didn't set it up all the way. Let's try that again. Debug. There's that. No. Let me debug. Just trying to validate that my assignment type value is coming in. Now you could use like process folders. Is there what other identifying information might there be for us to look at? Assignment type description. Let me just put it in description here as well then. See if either one of these will get picked up. Joy. I'm struggling to figure out a clever way for you to identify it, but let's just assume we could, and then we could talk. But what you could do is do something like this, right? You'd get your results. You would for each your results. Right? And then you could just check like the created on date, right? So you could say, use like a greater than rule. Data, or let's see where we at here. So this would be dates. Greater than date. Go here, false, you'd go here. This path would come back. So go to the end step. Okay. And then first date would be item created on date. The end date could be compute date. Start time would be first date. No, sorry. End date would be current date. Doing this wrong. And then first date should be compute date. Start time is going to be off the created on date of the item or the assignment. And then offset is constant 7 days. This, I think, see what came in here. 726, 802. Oh, I have my logic backwards. Either way, I'm just building a scheduled job to if I can filter this and only fetch the right type of assignment, then I can build a scheduled job whose goal is to fetch all the appropriate assignments, loop through them, check to see if the date's greater than 7 days or older. And if it is, based on the logic here, which mine is a little backwards, then run a call, pass that assignment ID in here with a statically defined response, and it'll push it down that particular outcome path for you. Is this making sense?
Yeah, it does.
You might just have to better, I just have to find a way to, like in the naming convention of, like of the assignment name, like find a way to identify these in some way. Like they all have like a particular prefix you use. Like we could, assuming they all have like award : in the name, for example, right? Well, then you could use a where assignment entity name starts with award : and state is current, something like that. But this will give you, this gives you equivalent behavior to what you get for free with a normal assignment.
Okay. I think I can make that work.
Okay, yeah, sorry about all that mess. That should be easier than that. All right, and Krushi, what you got for us?
Hi, Will. So I wanted to know if, can we use dynamic databases in the flow?
I'm sorry, what?
Dynamic databases, like suppose we have a client number one that is mapped to one database, and we are fetching and populating in his database, and we have a separate client, and can we like make it dynamic the database?
Ah, like same database table in different SQL servers or something?
Yeah.
Yes, you can. So what you would do is something like this. This is a great question. So I call it runtime database selection. AB, while I'm looking at this, you try to see if we have a decent doc for this, please. So I'm going to create actually I have a table connection already. Let me create a flow here. I'm sure you have some of these already. So if I go to integration database, I get my list of connections that I've created so far. I have here's my ASDF connection. And inside that I have a connection. Oh, that's the thing that's causing me all problems. I'll just use my local connection here. I have a bunch of steps. Most of these are run queries that I have written, but I would also have my tables here. So let me actually get a table integration just to make this more clear. Create data types integration, database, add table. I'm just going to use the local connection. And I'm going to use my entity folder table. Create all of these. Yep. Now this will work for queries as well as tables, but since we're asking about tables, I just want to get a table integration. Okay, so here we go. Let's come back to our flow, find our integration. So our integration or database table steps. So integration database, local connection. Now I have my table folder here. So let's go ahead and use a get by ID step. So right now, this is attached to the local connection by default, but I can click override connection string and I can pass in a connection string here. Second, run defined environment. Yeah. Oh, yikes! What happened? Yeah. Don't use transaction data. So I can specify the connection string here if I want to pass in a custom connection string. So I could have a lookup list table somewhere, maybe or a system constant that I can use. Like I could have the ability to do lookups and pass in a custom connection string. And that means that this call to entity folder, if this table lives on the local connection and a customer database, then as long as I can build up the connection string to make the call to that other database, I can have this particular step run against the entity folder table for the connection string that it is given. That's one option.
So we need to have a truth table for this, right?
Yeah, that's one way to do it. Yep. You could imagine that you have a truth table. Yep. Right, and so create a truth table here. And then, an input data is like customer name or something like that, right? Or customer ID. And then what we can do is if customer ID equals, we can come change our output type here from Boolean to string. Then we could write like a custom connection string. So let me What's the easiest way for me to pull my current connection string out? Do me a sec. Let me run my installer and pull my connection string out.
And will, like, if we plan to make this, so do we need to have the same table names in different databases and along with the schemas?
This pattern does expect the databases to be identical, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, otherwise, how could it be completely dynamic, right? Like, doesn't
Yeah.
it assume that there's some constancy or right? But here, if I did this, you know, customer ID, I'll just set it a constant value. And then I could pass the output of my truth table, set this to return first result. We don't do that anymore. First match only. Okay, we changed how that looks. All right, interesting. And then I could get the connection string from my truth table. This is not a good step. Let me just get all instead. Sorry. Connection string.
So the database name also needs to be the same, right?
I mean, the database name doesn't have to be the same. Like here, you see we're building up an actual connection string. So if the schema of the table is identical, then I think it can, well, the database table name should be the same. The database name doesn't have to be the same. Sorry, let me say it that way.
Yeah, nice.
Should be able to get this to work. Get my connection string from my truth table result here. Set that to ignore. Let's see, does that run? Okay, that runs. So I could make a different connection to my local and have it be a different row here. So this is how you could do dynamic SQL. Now you could also, if you have completely different like databases, then you might need to just do it in the actual routing of the flow, right? Where you have for certain types of customers, you go to certain types of databases, right? Like I don't have any clue as to how constant the database tables on your customer side might be. If they're related to one another at all. So you might have to do a more complicated routing here to account for different customers having different data storage patterns or mechanisms.
Will, so suppose if there are like 10 queries, and so I have to apply this truth table everywhere where I'm using a query or where I'm using an output table, right?
Yeah, you do.
Okay, that answers my questions. I guess that.
So yeah, what I would do is probably put these into a subflow so that you can have the same truth table locked in. So you turn these into one subflow that takes in like customer ID and outputs the data you need, and then go and replace your existing query steps with the subflow, so that you can have the lookup list embedded with the query step.
I'm not sure if because we fetch data in the main flow as well, from the main flow as well. So,
Sure.
so I'm not sure that can be possible, but yeah, this is good. I guess, yeah, I can try this out. Thank you. Well.
Okay, you're welcome. Anonymous attendee, but having a named session is the same as if you have an account for this. That is somewhat true, but the difficulty is when you need to be able to create an assignment but be able to delink the assignee's email from the email that gets sent. So in this example, Jeremy's going to create an assignment that sits there and waits, but he's going to use a separate way to send an email to the user that doesn't have an account. So the named session assignment type is allowing him to delink the need for an account having an email address because he doesn't know anything about this user ahead of time. Or if he does know, he's not going to incur the burden of managing an account for them. And he can delink the email and the account from the assignment. So that's one of the things that a named session based assignment lets you do. And the use case is in these sort of creating assignments for external users who you don't have any account-based knowledge of. You might just have an email address and you're not intending, you're not intending to set up a complete account for them. You know, we see this with customers who are using like third-party, or using vendors. Like they might have a workflow where they need a vendor to agree to something, and they use a named session-based assignment to create a task for that vendor to complete X or to complete Y. And at which point, once they complete it, the process moves forward, but they're not going to create accounts for, vendor A, user 1, vendor A, user 2, so on and so forth. All right, what other questions we have today? Anybody got anything else for us today? Past the 30-minute mark, if not. Okay. All right, we'll call it a day then. Thanks, everyone. Sabs, who's here tomorrow?
We have Brandon Roberts and Cam Irby.
Both of them together? Tag team?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, here we go. You try to build a form on the page that will affect repeater. Not sure I understand the question exactly. You maybe give me some more information? If you'd like to come off mute or not ask as an anonymous user, we could have a conversation about it. Can you try to build a form on a page that will affect a repeater? Like you imagine like a form that can populate a repeater when it runs, like a sub dialog flow that allows me to create a custom like add item to repeater behavior. A drop down that populates repeater fields based on select. Down that populated repeater fields. So like you want like a sub dialog that can run off of a clicking on a repeater. right, let's see here. Let's create ourselves a flow. And we'll put a form here. And we'll fetch entities. We'll do account. So we need to create our own type for this, don't we? No, I think account will be fine. So account, here's our form on the same form, not sub dialog. Okay, sure. So we're gonna create a new form here. Here's a button. And I'm gonna put a data repeater here. There's a data repeater, and I'm gonna put a drop-down list on the bottom here. Drop-down list will be type of string. List input source is static just to make it easy, which will be A, B, C. Okay, and then my repeater here, I'm gonna create, not pick or create new, repeater control. I will bind my repeater to under input type to an account. Okay, and then what I'll do is put a label here, and I'll make this get data, and I'll pass the email address here. Okay, and then what I'll do is, what does it say? Drop down that populates repeater fields based on selection change. And then I'll go ahead and put, let's put a text box here. And this, I will bind this to the first name field, just for an example here. Okay. And then here, my data name is going to be account data repeater. Selection type none, that should be fine. Let me save this and see if this, let me pass in my data from my fetch entity step. Ignore. Debug this. Okay, so I've got all the accounts and a data repeater there. So, all right. So what I need to do is build an active form flow. Relay repeater. And then what I'm going to do is run a flow that will, let me see here. What form data can I get here? Form data, data repeater, item source. Okay, so I'm going to find a for each step and a create data step here. I don't know that this is going to work, but let me give it a shot here. Then I need to use a form rule set control value. All right, so set control value, let me find form data, data repeater. And then here, set control value is a list of item. I'm going to select, or I'm going to find form data, data repeater, item source. Selected item is ignore. Selected line number is ignore. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to loop the list of data repeater data. So item source again, just do a change value operator. When you add repeater instance, need to look at drop-down selection. If A, admin, if B, will, and rebuild repeater instance on selection changed. I think that's where I'm headed. Let me see in a moment if this is where we are. What I'm doing here, I'm creating, oh yeah, update first name. All right. And then first name will be select the form data combo box selected item, and I will change the value form data data repeater. Oh, no, excuse me, not form data. I will change the item first name. Is this going to work? And then I will trigger this on the combo box selection changed, and I won't run at startup. Gonna work. I have nothing. Didn't update any of my stuff. Could work in theory. Okay, that works. Just change my approach here. So I need to loop that list. I need to create a list. I need to create a new list. Item to list here. So next is going to add an item. So let me create a list of accounts. Here's an account list. And then what I'll do is new item would be, I want new item, not items plural. New item, list type here is account. New item will be, get that to take, new item. New item is build data. Do email. First. And then email address will be item.email address. First name would be select from flow, form data, data repeater, excuse me, form data, combo box, select item. Original list is account list. Value on account list. Okay. Then set control value. Item source is select value from flow, account list. I bet this works. Can't do anything if it's invalid. Debug. I get all my items here, and then if I get A, they all get set to A. That helps. That was a lot. I can walk back through that. Basically, what we needed to use is an active form flow. So I have a flow, it fetches accounts, and it passes those accounts into a data repeater. That data repeater has a label and a text box, but it's bound to a type of account. And in my active form flow, what I do is I'm triggering on a selection change. So the thing fires based on the trigger selection here. And in my flow, I get all the items that are in the repeater, which you can see me passing the collection from form data.data repeater.item source. That's the mapping path for the data repeater. I then loop through that list and add some values to it, and then build up a new list. And then I pass that new list into this set control value step, which is pointed at the data repeater, but takes in the account list as the input, and which updates the current list of accounts to be with this. Now, we would want to actually set the actual account object and not a kind of fake, created a fake account object here as kind of as a shortcut. So just note that there are accounts without IDs that would come out of this particular design. We would need to, I think at minimum, we would probably, I don't know if we would have to refetch or at least include the account ID as one of the values to map here to ensure that the whole actual object comes out. Hopefully that helps. Oh, sure. Okay. Anybody else got any other questions? Ready. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. And Brandon and Cam will be here to help you guys out tomorrow. I will be back next week, Monday and Tuesday, I think. So appreciate everyone's joining, and hopefully learn something, and talk to you next week.